You think being good at your job is the safest path forward, but the truth is it might be the exact reason you're stuck. You show up every day. You do what's expected. You hit deadlines. You solve problems before anyone even notices them. People trust you. They rely on you. They praise you. And somewhere deep inside you believe this is how progress works. Do good work, get rewarded, move up. But something feels off. Because months pass, then years, and nothing really changes. Your role gets bigger. Your workload gets heavier. Your responsibilities quietly double. But your title, your position, your direction, exactly the same. And that's where the confusion starts. Because on paper you're doing everything right. But in reality, you're slowly building a cage. A cage made of competence. Here's what's actually happening. When you become really good at your job, you become valuable in a very specific way. Not as someone with potential, but as someone who solves problems efficiently. You become the safe option, the reliable one, the person who makes everything run smoothly. And that sounds like a compliment. But inside organizations, it creates a hidden problem. You become too useful to move. Because if they promote you, they lose you. And replacing someone like you is not easy. It creates risk. It creates friction. It creates uncertainty. So instead of moving you forward, they keep you exactly where you are. Not because they don't like you, not because you're not good enough, but because you're too good at the wrong thing. So what happens next? They don't promote you, they expand you. They give you more responsibility, more problems, more pressure, but they keep you in the same role. You become the person who handles everything, the broken systems, the messy clients, the tasks no one else wants. And because you don't complain, you get more of it. Not growth, just accumulation. And slowly, your job becomes 2 jobs, then 3. But none of them are the next level. Here's where it gets dangerous. You think you're growing, but you're actually repeating. Because once you master your job, you stop stretching. You know the shortcuts. You know the patterns. You know how to get things done without thinking too much. It feels like mastery, but it's not. It's efficiency. And efficiency is a trap because it rewards speed, not expansion. So 1 year later, you're faster, cleaner, more precise, but you're still operating in the same range. You didn't evolve. You just optimized. You think getting better at your job makes you ready for the next level. The reality is, it often makes you more replaceable in that exact role and less visible for anything beyond it. If this hits, comment 1 below, because most people never realize this until it's too late. The skills that make you successful right now are not the skills that get you promoted. Execution is not leadership. Reliability is not strategy. Speed is not vision. At the next level, the game changes. It's no longer about doing the work. It's about deciding what work matters. It's about navigating uncertainty, making decisions without full information, managing people, not just tasks. And here's the problem. No one trains you for that. They expect you to figure it out after you get promoted. But they won't promote you until you already show it. So you're stuck in a loop. You're judged by your current role, for a role that requires completely different skills. And because no one sees those skills in you, you don't move. Not because you can't do it, but because no one associates you with it. That's how labels form. Quietly, subtly, without you noticing. You become the Excel guy, the operations person, the one who fixes things. And at first it feels like recognition. But over time, it becomes limitation. Because now every time your name comes up in a room you're not in, it's attached to that identity. Not your potential, not your ambition, just your function. And once that label sticks, it's incredibly hard to break. Because organizations don't see who you could be. They see proof of who you've been. And the longer you stay, the stronger that proof becomes. This is why people leave companies to grow. Not always because the company is bad, but because the company already decided who they are. And changing that perception internally is often harder than starting fresh somewhere else. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. You didn't get stuck by doing the wrong things. You got stuck by doing the right things too well. You were reliable, low maintenance, easy to manage. You didn't create tension. You didn't create urgency, and that made you invisible. Because in most organizations, silence gets interpreted as satisfaction. If you don't ask for more, they assume you don't want more. If you don't speak up, they assume you're fine. If you don't signal movement, they assume you're staying. And no one promotes someone they believe is already happy. This is where most people lose the game without even knowing the rules, because promotions don't happen based on effort. They happen based on narrative. Decisions are made in rooms you're not in, by people who don't see your daily work. They don't analyze your task list. They don't track your efficiency. They ask one simple question: who feels ready? And readiness is not about performance. It's about perception. It's about who comes to mind, who has visibility, who has a story. If no one is telling your story, you don't exist in that conversation. That's the system, and it's not fair, but it's real. The people who move up are not always the best workers. They're the most visible ones. They talk about what they're doing. They share progress. They build relationships beyond their immediate team. They don't just do good work. They make sure people know they're doing good work, not in an arrogant way. In a strategic way, they create context around themselves. They position themselves as someone who's moving forward. And more importantly, they ask. They say what they want. They make it clear they're not staying in the same place forever. And that changes everything. Because now there's a timeline. Now there's a risk. Now leadership has to think, if we don't move this person, we might lose them. And suddenly, you become a priority. Not because you changed your ability, but because you changed your signal. This is the part no one teaches you. Competence is not a strategy. It's the baseline. It gets you in the room. It earns you respect. It gives you stability. But it does not create movement. Movement comes from positioning, from visibility, from narrative, from intention. And if you ignore that, you will stay exactly where you are. No matter how good you become, this is the reality most people avoid because it feels uncomfortable. It feels political. It feels unnatural. But avoiding it doesn't make it go away. It just keeps you stuck longer. And the longer you stay, the harder it becomes to leave. Because now you're not just good at your job. You are your job. You're the institutional knowledge, the go-to person, the one everyone depends on. And that feels important. But it's not security. It's inertia. Pain doesn't show up immediately. It shows up later. When you realize years have passed and nothing meaningful has changed. When you look around and see people less capable moving ahead of you. When you start questioning your own value, not because you lack it, but because it's been misdirected. And that's the cost. Not money. Time. Time spent mastering something that doesn't move you forward. Time you don't get back. So what do? You don't stop being good. You stop being only good at your current job. You start reallocating your energy. You begin learning the next role before you have it. You take on visibility, not just responsibility. You speak about your goals clearly. You build relationships outside your bubble. You make your ambition known without being aggressive. You shift from execution to expansion because staying excellent at something that doesn't grow you is just a slower way to stay stuck. The goal is not to abandon competence. The goal is to build range, to become someone who can operate beyond the role you're in, to make people see you differently before your title changes. Because titles don't create identity, perception does. And once perception shifts, everything else follows. In the end, the trap isn't failure. It's comfort, the comfort of being good, the comfort of being trusted, the comfort of knowing exactly what to do. But comfort and progress are not the same thing. And most people choose comfort without realizing it. They think they're building a career, but what they're actually building is a very efficient way to stay in the same place. That's the truth. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. If this changed how you think, consider subscribing.